I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And today we have more questions to answer from you. Thank you guys so much for using that Q&A button on TikTok. You guys always come through with like the best questions. So much so that some of them I had to save for when Chris got back. Yes, and welcome back, Chris.
Hello, I have returned.
Yes, he is back from New England and having his fun adventures all around there. So, but before we get started, I do want to pass it over to JT so he can do a few little announcements.
Cool, yeah. So a couple of announcements really fast. All mobile podcasts that we've been doing will now be Patreon exclusives. So if you love the mobile podcast, definitely check out our Patreon, and we're going to be doing multiple per month where we go to these haunted places and we basically just tell the stories. We might do a little bit of ghost hunting, if need be, but mainly it's about that storytelling, and there's like mini documentaries, and it's very, very visual. And you get that on YouTube. It's going to be on a private link for patrons only, or for parajunkies only, I should say, and it is going to be ad free. We're currently editing a new series for Patreon, The Most Haunted City on Earth, the series. And our first episode is going to be the Sorrel Weed House.
Woo-hoo.
Yep.
Which was incredibly creepy, and they were very, very active during our filming. So if you want to hear all about that, definitely consider becoming a parajunkie.
For sure. All right, I wanted to acknowledge the new parajunkies, the people that have come to support us and that love the content that we put out. We really, really appreciate y'all. The new ones are Kelly McClellan, Lauren, Caitlin, John and Casey Randolph, Lorenzo Chavez, Emma, Sarah Kelly, and Terry Fisher. Thank y'all so much. We really appreciate you listening and for your support. And then we actually have something else up on Patreon. I literally just got it up. It is the interview that you did with Julie Roundtree.
Yes, yeah.
Right,
I actually got to sit down face to face with Julie.
Yes.
Yeah, in the Hawthorne Hotel,
yes,
right?
in the haunted Hawthorne Hotel.
Ooh. Oh yes, a very musty, creepy hotel. It's
cool
in a good way. Yes.
Is it the most haunted in Salem?
That's what they say.
That is up for debate.
Sure.
Maybe the most haunted hotel.
Yeah.
But certainly not the most haunted site.
Yeah.
Cool.
I would agree with that.
All right.
But it is very creepy looking if you ever are in Salem, for sure. But if you enjoyed the episode with Julie that JT and I did over FaceTime, definitely consider checking it out on Patreon.
And lastly, of the mentions, if y'all have ever heard of the Fresh Hell podcast, we have recently been in contact with them, and we are talking to them about doing a collaboration episode where they do true crime mainly, and obviously we're more paranormal, but we thought it'd be really cool to do like a fusion episode, like a true crime paranormal fusion. So that's going to be really, really cool. We're going to try to get that hammered out. But for right now, actually, I'm going to go ahead and play their promo. You got to check them out.
I'm Annie from Boston, Massachusetts.
And I'm Johanna from Vienna, Austria. We are the hosts of Fresh Hell, your international podcast that covers murder, mystery, and the macabre throughout history. Are you interested in the 3,569 ways your household could have killed you in the Victorian era?
Do you know how malaria and syphilis played a role in the John List family murders?
And have you ever wondered what Prince Albert's sex chair had to do with the murder of Stanford White? Okay, nothing. It had nothing to do with it. We're still telling you about it though.
It's a pretty great sex chair. If you're looking for another show that talks about Ted Bundy, this is probably not the podcast for you. But if you're looking for two women that cover lesser-known cases from all over the world with a lot of background information,
So much background information that you will rock your local pub quiz from now on.
then find Fresh Hell Podcast on your favorite podcast app.
We also have German cannibals.
See you soon.
Tschüss.
Yes, so Annie is from the US and Johanna, the two hosts, Johanna is from Austria. So very interesting. They have a great rapport with each other, but they have never met in person.
That's so cool.
Which is just so fascinating, but also just shows the wonders of the internet and what it can do. But they have a great setup going. They have also won actually an award. They won the People's Choice Podcast Award for Best Female Hosted Podcast in 2021.
Whoop, whoop.
So congratulations to them. But they do really great research. They pull out these fascinating stories on serial killers. They recently did one that was like a serial killer believed to be alive before H.H. Holmes, which is super cool.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it's a very interesting episode, so definitely check that out. But if you aren't familiar with them and you like true crime, you definitely will enjoy it and maybe consider becoming one of their hellions, which is what they call their
Oh, they're
fans.
hellions?
Yeah, which is
Oh,
really
so we
cool
got the
too.
Paradunkies and they got the it's
Yeah.
a collaboration meant to be.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So, yep, definitely check out their podcast if you haven't already.
All right, let's go ahead and get to the questions. Here we go. This is actually one that we, Madison and I, answered last Q&A episode, but we wanted to ask Chris about this question. It's actually funny. Megan Jones asked this question.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Not your wife.
No.
Yes, spelled
Not your
slightly
wife.
different.
Yes. It's Meghan Jones. And she asked, is there any good or paranormal places you will not go out of fear? Also, wanted to say, love the work you guys do. My new favorite podcast.
That's really interesting.
Did you mean ghost or paranormal?
I'm sorry. Is there any ghost or paranormal places you
Okay,
will not
cool.
go out of fear? Sorry.
That is so fascinating because I literally was just given insight to a place that I knee-jerk reactioned, no thank you. And that was the Conjuring House. I was doing a ghost hunt at the Lizzie Borden house, and I made contact with two different groups at the house that had just stayed at the Conjuring House. And when I found out that you could stay, there was something there was a lump in my stomach that was like, don't do that. That's not. But it dissipated with time to that. Curiosity will always devour fear. Like my fear is strong, and I would avoid many things if not for the fact that my curiosity is a bully. And will just be like, you shut up, fear, sit down, we're going in. So I guess the answer to the question is almost everywhere gives me trepidation. Almost any ghostly place, I am like, no, thank you. But I come around I because I want that story and I want to alleviate, because knowing it's available just kind of eats at my brain. Knowing that I can, go to this haunted place, experience it, and put it in my big book of been there, done that. The long and short of it is the Conjuring House is definitely a place that I sense is foreboding and full of evil and full of darkness. And I, right there on that first level, was I'm not doing that. And then the next day I was looking at the rates. Oh, it's pretty reasonable, actually.
Absolutely. It actually is very reasonable
It is very
price.
reasonable. So,
What are the rates?
It was like
so for a party of 6, it's $160 per person for an overnight.
which is like,
And is
really?
is that a private overnight?
So I can't figure it out.
Okay.
I don't know. And it is definitely a have at it kind of thing where they leave you in the building and they're like, okay, we'll see you in the morning, maybe. And so I think you might be with groups of people, and I'm sure there's a limit to how many people, but I found that endlessly fascinating. It's like I get 6 people together with $1.60, let's go. At the same time, I'm like, oh, we're all going to die. So
I'm willing to take that risk.
there you go.
If enough of you become para junkies, we will definitely take that
Oh,
risk.
absolutely.
So it's,
yeah, we will go.
Yes.
We will go.
But yeah. When Chris mentioned that, I was like, I love New England, first off. And then also, that is a place I've always been interested in. And I'm fascinated with all the places that the Warrens have been to. So
Yeah, for the longest time, the Conjuring House was just a
private residence.
You couldn't, and it went for sale over the pandemic time, and now it is open. They do daily tours. They they do these overnights, and I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. There's access to a place that we have become well aware of thanks to the movies, but I had always known about it because I was a Warren fan, Elizabeth Warren fan. Elizabeth.
Lorraine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, that.
I think Elizabeth Warren.
Is
That
a
sounded.
political.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Elizabeth Warren is a little more in the news than Lorraine Warren. Lorraine Warren. I'm a huge Ed and Lorraine Warren fan. So yes,
Gotcha.
I definitely want to peek at that, and I want to go to their museum, which is closed to the public. But I am cursory friends with people involved with that museum, so hopefully at one point we'll be able to.
They are having the Warren children they're not children, they're grown adults now, but the children of Ed and Lorraine Warren, they put on a Paracon.
Yeah, the Paracon.
Yeah.
They're moving Annabelle.
Lord, don't move Annabelle, please.
They're moving Annabelle to the Paracon.
Oh, jeez. But if you guys are listening, I don't know if Ed and Lorraine Warren's family is listening to this podcast, but if you are, definitely have us there because we'll be there, you know, if you want us. Yes. But yeah, so that's why I wanted to include this question for Chris, because I knew he was going to have a vastly different answer than JT and I, who were like, yeah, we'll go anywhere. Sounds good.
All right, next question. Woo Boy.
Woo Boy.
Woo Boy, B-O-I. Woo Boy 74 asks, hey guys, I love the pod. Chris's bitty bop Chris's bitty bop bomb boop at the start tells me I'm in for a treat. I love that. That's why I included it.
Yes.
Thank you, Woo Boy 74. I wanted to know if you guys have any New Orleans stories.
I don't know if they are referring to like personal experiences in New Orleans. I have been to New Orleans with JT. We went last year, yes. And there's definitely a lot of energy there, but it's also a very chaotic place, so it's very difficult to pick up on things, and I get very, very overstimulated very easily. So a lot of my perception of the spirits was drowned out by the chaos that is New Orleans. But I do have a favorite story from New Orleans, which is
I know it.
Yes, the Madame LaLaurie story, because everybody, when they go to New Orleans, they always want to talk about voodoo and they want to talk about, all of that stuff, but they don't talk about this woman. And she is probably one of the most horrific people in history, in my opinions, like at least in Southern U.S. history, because she would torture her slaves. She would lock them in the attic of her home and torture them. And then on top of it, she would torture her children too, because her children were not psychopaths, and they would actually try to help the slaves. They would try to feed them, and anytime they would get caught, she would torture them and chain them up and things like that. She ended up killing a bunch of people because of it. And it's a very haunted location in New Orleans. I don't feel like gets enough credit for what it was.
Sure.
So definitely.
Maybe we should do an episode on that one.
Oh, definitely. I would love
a full
to.
episode. It sounds like there's a lot there.
There is a lot there. But if you're not familiar with the story, definitely look into it because it is interesting.
Or just wait for us to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I'm more than happy to do that. But I think that's one of the more fascinating stories in New Orleans. Unfortunately, you can't really go into their cemeteries anymore. I don't know when have you been to New Orleans?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know when the last time you were there, but when we were there.
It was pre-Katrina.
Oh, okay.
I haven't been back since Katrina.
Gotcha.
And you basically had full run of the place. You know,
Sure.
The nights were you could just wander aimlessly about. Not that it was advisable, but we did. We went into all the cemeteries. We tooled around the entire place, and New Orleans has a very similar vibe to Savannah. It's almost like a Savannah that isn't trying to keep up appearances.
Yes,
in
it
a
is.
lot of ways.
Oh, wow.
You know, because Savannah,
I agree,
is still trying to. I'm delicate. Don't. Oh. And New Orleans is like, let the good times roll. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, come on, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because it spiritually speaking, that's the same kind of sensation you get. There's a more boisterous and bold presence in New Orleans. I had a friend who was a voodoo practitioner, and he had such great stories. And
What was his name?
His name was Cosmo Bro.
Cosmo Bro.
I use it in almost every story I have because it's such a good name, Cosmo Bro.
That is.
Cosmo Bro tells this story of having a terrible fever as a child, like on death's door fever. And they took him out into the swamps and found the old woman in the hut who, cured him, but for a price.
Ooh.
And the price was he would forever be plagued by spirits. He would forever have spirits see him, like he would glow incandescent to spirits, and they would just come to him and they would bother him his whole life. And I always loved that story. The concept of that story was so amazing to me.
Why?
It was the
Why
exchange.
that? Why is that exchange? Why is that the exchange?
I am not sure. I don't know the full. But if I had to guess, it was because she used some kind of old magic to help him.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if it were a question of averting death, like pulling someone from death, then you have violated some natural law. You have done something that makes basically he's wedged in the door. He was on his way out and she pulled him back, and now he is 1 foot in the spirit world and 1 foot in the real world, in our world.
Isn't that kind of like Constantine?
It is a little.
Yeah,
it is a little.
It's very interesting.
That is.
That's fascinating. See, unfortunately, we didn't get to go into the cemeteries because we had a tour guide there who referred to New Orleans as the city where care forgot.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because it's very true. It does have a lot of really interesting history, and it is a lot like Savannah, but like the untamed sister of Savannah. And so, but the cemeteries, you look into it, and the reason why you can't go in them is because you will get hurt. It is like the ground is so like that.
What is it like? Oh, okay.
Like,
I just didn't.
that's
No. Say that one more
vocalization.
time. I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
No, it's okay. I think they got it
Down
point.
on River Street.
Yes, exactly.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's that's the vocalization of what cobblestone and
Heels.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Your ankles.
Yeah, exactly. All of the above that would snap trying to walk through those cemeteries.
Yeah.
But they are very creepy, and it's unfortunate.
Well, and because they were so below sea level, close to sea level, the ground was far too wet to bury people. So almost all of the graves are above ground in these like crypty things, which is on its own a eerie thing because you're walking shoulder to shoulder with the dead. You're not walking over them. You're walking in a maze of dead. And that creates this kind of sensation of I'm walking this corridor of death, and these spirits are all around me. Plus, I'm in a city that reveres the dead, that celebrates the dead, that communes with the dead. So the dead are very active in New Orleans. So it's interesting to say, do you have New Orleans ghost stories? We could do an entire episode on New Orleans, but we can also do entire episodes on the specific things in New Orleans. We could really focus in and tell stories that are like this, and this, which does seem contrary to us claiming Savannah as the most haunted city.
Yeah, right.
Where we're like, we can just go into New Orleans and tell all those stories.
Well, I mean, like
it's a different type of haunting.
Sure, but also I feel like Savannah is I'll make the case for this, all day. Is, the Savannah is, built upon, hundreds of thousands of bones just everywhere. There's just history all under. And, of course, New Orleans is too, but that makes it probably one of the top 5 most haunted cities on Earth.
I mean, whenever the conversation of what city is most haunted,
there's always a battle.
You'll get that battle.
You're going to get that battle.
Oh,
Absolutely. But per capita is what I mean.
Exactly.
Per capita, we are much smaller
that's
than
what I was
NOLA.
saying, because you take New York.
Yeah.
New York's got full battlefields in
of course.
New York, but it's spread out, and it's a big city.
But we are like a battlefield that people live on and inhabit, and that's why there's so many people that come here and see so many ghosts.
That's why
and just feel haunted everywhere. You can go get a beer somewhere. You could go to the local gas station. There's dead everywhere, and that's why we make this show.
Well, exactly. And that's why Savannah is quite literally referred to as a necropolis, that city of the dead.
Yeah.
It's because it's literally the entire city that is covered in dead people.
Absolutely.
And we just built parking garages on top of them. So,
Yeah, even this building right here, we've said it in previous episodes. I mean, there was a battle right over there with the Hessians, right? Battle right over there. There's been, a ton of people, like this was Frogtown, right?
Yeah, this is Frogtown.
This was behind Frogtown.
We're behind Frogtown. And then also, this was a big like gullet area. Correct, like where we are.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I mean, it's just there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, and this building used to be a train station, so a lot of
transients.
A lot of transients. So that is that. I mean, I would love to have a New Orleans week.
Yeah.
Where we kind of talk about the different hauntings. Let us know if you think that would be really cool. But. Yay. And then again, we said it once, we'll say it again. If we get enough patrons to fund a trip to NOLA, we'll do it. 100%. All righty, here we go. Skiz69. Sounds dirty. Do y'all have any stories about Tybee Island? Any hauntings out there?
Ooh. Yes. There are several ghost stories that you'll hear, and of course any lighthouse they'll always tell you is haunted. Lighthouses are always haunted, and that's kind of fascinating because the concept of a lighthouse is a light in the dark, a safe haven, warning you of danger. So many people think that lighthouses just draw spirits. The spirits are responding to this beacon in the darkness. So we do have the classic lighthouse ghost at Tybee, but a lot of people don't realize is that as you're going right onto Tybee, there's Lazaretto, Lazaretto Bluff, Lazaretto Creek, and Lazaretto is a term that was used a lot in early settlements as the place where they quarantined the sick. So Lazaretto was actually a place where they quarantined sick people coming in, immigrants and things like that. They would put them on little Lazaretto Bluff, right on the edge of Tybee. And if I'm not mistaken, when they widened the highway, they upturned bodies, because when you put sick people on a small sliver of dirt, many of them die. And what's sad is some of them were healthy when they got there. They were being quarantined on suspicion of illness, but they were being quarantined with ill people. So Lazaretto Bluff is woefully haunted. You can go out there and get yourself really a good creep on if you want.
Yeah.
Oh man, we should do it. We should do mobile podcasting.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's
an
I
easy
had
one
no
too.
idea. That's great.
Yeah. There's always Chris is right. It's always the lighthouse and stuff like that. There's not a ton of people that talk about hauntings out at Tybee. Mm-hmm. I do have a good tidbit though about Tybee, is that there is actually a missile, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a missile.
Well, it's a bomb.
Yes, a hydrogen bomb. Yes, that is
a broken arrow.
Yep, that is in the ocean at Tybee somewhere.
It seems to be in the mouth of the Savannah River right up there in that area. It's right off of Tybee. But you'll see lots of references to it on Tybee, the Tybee bomb.
Exactly. So if you want something to unnerve you while you're at Tybee, besides the red tide that will get you before it, it's...
It's an H-bomb that they never found.
Yeah.
Although I want to say that somebody recently, 2 French scuba divers, pinged something and suggest that it is the H-bomb, but they don't want to move it, of course.
Yeah, hopefully they didn't ping it too hard.
Yeah.
No, I meant they
know.
put a GPS flag down on it.
I'm just being a goober.
But yeah, that's personally what creeps me out the most about Tybee is just knowing
some
that.
Some people say that they see, and again, we talked about this a lot. It's a classic ghost, but people have seen a woman in white on the beach.
Oh.
Encountered a woman in white. And this is a big tourist destination, so it could just be a tourist standing on the beach. But a lot of people have encountered seeing what seemed to be an abnormally glowing woman in white. And when they try to approach this woman, she just seems to not be there anymore. And that is one of those classic beach stories.
Yeah. Does she usually show up before storms?
That is the common story is
we just talked about the gray man.
The gray man.
Yeah.
Sure.
We just talked about the gray man in Saturday's episode. We did like a storm.
Goes.
Storm
the storms.
spirit.
Right, sure, storm spirits.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Storm spirits.
Yeah.
It's the widow's walk kind of spirit who watches the ocean when it turns to gray.
Also, don't bring your dogs to Tybee because the government hates them.
They will give you a $300 fine. Trust us, we have experience with this. So
yes,
don't
Tybee
do that.
is a no-dog beach.
Yes, if you are going to ghost hunt, don't bring your dog.
Yeah, don't.
They suck.
Don't do it.
All right. And next, Angel Dewada asks, how can you tell if a spirit is truly a loved one or something pretending to be your loved one? Oof. We've gotten questions like that before.
Sure.
We've gotten questions like that before.
That is tough.
It's a tough question to answer because you really have to feel out the situation. But I think it boils down to if it's actually your loved one, they're not going to be trying to give you information that you shouldn't know. Like things like you're going to meet the love of your life in 5 years on this date or whatever it is. Like they are not going to give you that type of information. And usually something that does give you information like, oh, you're going to die on blah, blah, blah date. That's something that is, actually trying to trick you and manipulate you in that way by being like, oh, my grandma can give me my information, but it's not your grandma. Usually loved ones show up in ways of comfort.
Sure.
There are going to be, the spirits that show...
Depending on your relationship with the loved one,
it's true. Exactly, yeah. It does vary, but a lot of times the spirits that do, show up to people, they tend to have a good relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, but a lot of times that's why you see the people seeing certain birds like cardinals, or they see butterflies or dragonflies or whatever it is. Those are usually your loved ones being present, or they show up in dreams.
And I would say that your feelings should be taken into deep account because some people get blinded by their desire. Desire is a feeling that can cloud that deeper knowledge feeling, the feeling of oh, this is right, this is good, because we want something so bad that we forget. So you have to really measure out how much your want is overshadowing other sensations. If you have any doubts, doubt is a very strong indicator that you are dealing with something other than the loved one. But it's worth noting that this question is well marked throughout history as something that occurs. Take Hamlet. When Hamlet sees his own father's ghost, he doesn't immediately take it for true. He in his mind says, this could be a lie. This could be a trick. This could be a demon. This could be, I have to take it carefully. Ebenezer Scrooge, when Marlowe shows up, he immediately dismisses it and says, you could be a bit of undigested meat, or, there's more of gravy than of grave of you. This suggests that throughout history, when people are faced with a ghost of a familiar person who has passed, they have to wrestle with the idea of who this person is. And in many cases, it's about proving that they're truly who they are. So I don't think there's an easy answer to the question. It has to come from a place of your knowledge of the person, of the loved one. It has to come from a place of familiarity, of feeling. There is a sensation, like whenever I go into an old bookstore and there's that smell of old books, it always reminds me of my grandparents' house, because my grandparents had lots of bookshelves and the books were very old, and so there was this smell that pervaded the entire house. That sensation, that nostalgic feel, would be what I would expect if either of my grandparents came to me. It's that same sensation, I know this place, I know this interaction. So I would say pay attention to your feelings very closely. And if you have doubts, heed them. And doubts don't mean that they're not who they are. It's just, it means that there's enough to stand in your way of embracing, your specter family member. And I do agree that usually they come gently. They don't just pop up and they're like, "I love you." And it's like, "Ah!"
Exactly.
They oftentimes start with signs, with the butterflies, the cardinals, whatever it is that they're using to represent their presence in your life. They're not trying to scare you. They're trying to comfort you. They're trying to show that they're there, or they're trying to warn you.
Exactly.
A lot of times they're like, something imminent is happening, or you're in a bad place. So be mindful, pay attention, and respect your feelings. And don't let your desire outweigh your other feelings.
Mm-hmm. I would completely agree with that. Always trust your gut. Your intuition is way, way stronger than a lot of people give it credit. But usually when you have a gut feeling, there is a reason for it. But I do like to add that, it's not to say that if, your loved one is giving you information to a degree of like guidance, because there's a lot of loved ones that turn into your spirit guides. And that comes from myself, who, my grandmother is my spirit guide. So, but her symbol usually is just a cardinal being present, just being like, I'm watching over, but it's not to say that, your loved one couldn't be trying to guide you. So don't necessarily take that as being like, that's a demon,
Oh yeah, no.
It's usually if something is trying to manipulate you into doing something, or, trying to coerce you by scare tactics or things like that. That's when it gets suspicious.
Are, demons intelligent enough to make you believe that they are your spirit guide by giving you that good stuff, that good advice at first?
Yes.
And then slowly transitioning into problems?
Absolutely.
But there's an earnestness, because there's a plan that is so central to their being. They're not subtle, and and what they're, and technically, and this is a good thing, is that ideally a true demon has never been human, so it does not understand things like grief and deliberation and things like that. Everything to a demon is very cut and dry. So that gives you just a little more insight to the idea that if a demon has a plan, it's not waiting for you to catch up to the plan. It's just enacting the plan. It's, they always talk about demons being manipulators. And it's like, well, yes and no. They don't know what a human is. I mean, they understand it by observation, but they don't understand it by sensation or feeling. So when they're acting like a person, they oftentimes are off. They oftentimes don't have empathy, sympathy. They oftentimes can't show those qualities that we recognize as humans because they don't have them, which we oftentimes label as evil. And when it comes down to it, maybe evil is our construct. It's what they are. It's the classic, if a mountain lion comes and kills a child, we will say that was an evil animal. It's like, but was it? No, it was doing exactly what a mountain lion does. It was acting as a mountain lion does. And if you asked a mountain lion to have sympathy, empathy, if you asked for those things from a mountain lion, you're probably not going to get it. But some wild animals will be approachable. You can encounter them and not be mauled. And then you start to think, oh, this mountain lion is good because it didn't eat me. This mountain lion is good because I got to touch its head. All those things. And it's like,
I see.
Guess what? That mountain lion's still going to eat you.
Yeah.
That mountain lion is behaving as a mountain lion, and we have attributed it with it's docile, it's tame,
Sure.
it's okay. So I'm always wary when we talk demons, because demons by connotation equals evil, which equals this construct that we have created. But in many instances, it's like, just avoid the demon and you should be fine. Don't engage, don't try to interact or coerce or summon or do anything of that nature, and you'll probably be fine. Just be mindful that if there's a mountain lion in your house, what do? Get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You leave the house. So just be mindful. We talk about demons a lot, and it's just because the word helps us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good word for that thing. And we'll even use evil on occasion. But to me, the only thing that can truly be evil is a human being, because we're the only ones who really define it, which means if we know what evil is and we commit it, then it's evil. That's
Very
evil.
deep.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're getting deep here.
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. Anne-Marie Morales, she's asked a couple of questions.
She has quite a few in
Oh,
this
yeah.
list, but
Wow.
she
Yeah.
had really good questions.
Yeah, she do.
So.
After listening to your residual hauntings versus intelligent haunting episode, to clarify, intelligent spirits can possess residual characteristics such as sense, correct?
Yes. If I'm understanding the question, yes. So, intelligent hauntings, they have different forms of ways to communicate with you. So, I mean, in a sense, you could, release a smell of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's necessarily their go-to method, but, I'm sure if that's like a part of like their motive, it's totally possible.
In a lot of ways, an intelligent haunting is kind of a promotion from residual haunting. If you wanted to think of it in a broader, wider sense, all intelligent hauntings are indeed residual hauntings, but not all residual hauntings are intelligent hauntings. Meaning, in order to be an intelligent haunt, you are probably locked into a place or a sensation or a thing. You are the residue of a life that is still around, but you have faculties, you have senses, you are able to communicate. And I am slowly learning, because I am not familiar. I have not lived in a world where spirits are actively communicative, actively aware, actively, involved. I am a spot haunter. Like I know ghosts by their locations, by their things. So I don't have that experience of encountering ghosts on the sides of roads and things like that. But I am now becoming more and more versed in the idea that there are just spirits that are existing. They don't have this deeper purpose, because I always talk about the most popular beliefs in ghosts from around the world, and the three are desecration of grave, unfinished business, and residual. When you think that I'm talking about the top three, that means there's probably hundreds and hundreds of other things, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other things that I'm not including in those three. I use those as my top three, and I use them to help me identify and what is happening. But the idea that there are spirits that just dwell, that just exist without need of resolution, and because that's another thing is we are humans have a tendency to believe that we have to get the spirit to the light or help it move on or help it transition. It's like, guess what? It is in that process all on its own.
Yeah.
And when we think of them as trapped or anything like that, it's like, well, we can try to help as much as we can, but there is a certain level of being trapped that the spirit itself must have to go through in order to untangle whatever is going on. It's much like people. When you have people who are trapped, and you can try to help them all you want, but it's not until they are ready or willing to change or to move. you're wasting and exhausting a lot of energy trying to help people who refuse help. Now, if people want help, absolutely help them. But if people are refusing help, your energy might be wasted on this continual attempt to help them. So worth noting that intelligent haunts are residual in the fact that they have stayed, period. They are still here.
Gotcha.
And the residual haunt that we often talk about is a pattern of a spirit that moves without alteration or change, that has a time, a date, and things like that, a scent or anything, the sound that you hear at a certain time. But that doesn't mean that there's not an intelligent haunt, an intelligent ghost that is attached to that pattern. And when you interrupt it, when you interact with it, it can turn its intelligence to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. And on to the next one. Anne-Marie Morales asks, how do you guard your energy yet still be open or inviting of spirits to communicate with you? It's a great question.
I would like, it is. I would like to preface that before you ever try to communicate with a spirit, first off, know how to protect yourself like to a T for your specific energy. Because if you don't know how to do like a protection spell or like, you know, certain prayers, whatever your belief system is, if you're not very, very confident in it, it is not safe to communicate with spirits. Because when you're opening yourself up to a spirit realm, you're opening yourself up to everything in that realm. And sometimes it isn't the person you're trying to contact who comes through first. So you have to be able to have that conviction in your knowledge and your wards or whatever you did before your little ceremony or things that you performed to communicate with these spirits. It's not going to be a safe situation and things can go awry very, very quickly. So I like to preface that. But it's a hard question to answer without knowing the belief system of the person who is trying to do the communicating. Because for me personally, I like using certain crystals. I do protection spells work essentially, where, you know, it's a little bit of a ritual before talking to any kind of spirit. And that goes from like tarot cards up to like, you know, full on having conversations with like spirit guides and stuff like that. So, you know, and that's what works for me. And there are other people that would work for them as well. But, you know, if you're a Catholic, you know, you can say certain prayers and things like that. You can honor certain saints to protect you in that regard. You can use rosaries. And then there's some people who use evil eyes and wear those on their person. So it's a very vast way that you can protect yourself. I think it really boils down to what your personal belief system is. And I would highly, highly encourage you reading books first off.
Absolutely.
Books are your best friend. I know not everybody is a book person, but there's Audible now. So, you know, there's audiobooks. There's lots of ways to get this
YouTube
information.
Now.
Exactly.
You know, YouTube does have just an endless, you know, selection of various types of faiths and practices that, you know, you find the one that makes the most sense to you, because that's the other thing is faith and sense kind of have to go together. Mm-hmm. If you believe in something that you don't think makes any sense, you're probably not really believing in it. You know, there's something in you that suggests that the thing that you have faith in, you've been questioning. So the strength of your conviction is the strength of your protection. And that means, you know, ideally, that's why a priest has dominion over spirits, is because they've devoted their life to a faith without question. And if they do have questions, they seek out answers, and they have answers, and they are working in a life of that field, which is why I used to always have that argument. Is like, well, what if the ghost isn't Catholic? You know,
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's not about the denomination of the faith. It's about the faith. The faith itself is the weapon. And if you have it, then you can wield it. You can use it to ward away things that might prey upon you. So I use what is called the white box. The white box is basically, you imagine a white box in your head. And by imagining this box, this white box, you're basically carrying around with you something that the spirit realm recognizes or understands. Meaning, I've got a box. The purpose of the box is to protect me. I will put myself in the box if I have to. I'll put my friends in the box if I have to. Simply by thinking it, by imagining the white box as an impervious box. And the only way that works is by absolutely believing that it works. Belief changes reality. And that is one of the things that as human beings we have woefully forgotten, that we made reality what it is through belief, through a combined belief, through consensus. But if you can have faith stronger than the consensus, then you can change the world. Worth noting.
I completely agree. And so definitely do some digging on, different types of protection aspects of whatever your belief system is. That's kind of where we're going with this. Also, eventually, when you do have a very solid protection platform to work off of, always do your communication with spirits with another person there at the beginning, for sure.
Never do it alone.
Yeah. Because it's important to have somebody else there to back you up if things, go awry. So, yeah. And if you are interested in me telling you more about books of like things that I personally utilize, more than happy to do that. But I don't like to push my personal, uses onto others. So.
Yeah, I was about to say, we've had a couple questions like that on Patreon.
Yeah, I can definitely post some recommendations on Patreon if you guys are interested in that sort of thing. But not everybody uses the same stuff that I use, so it might not be helpful. But if it is, let me know, and I will do that.
Cool. All right, here we go. Average Son asks, what advice would you give to protect What advice would you give to someone who is anxious and wants to protect themselves against evil spirits? Do you guys ever worry about that?
I just talked about the white box.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
actually what I use myself. And strangely enough, it started as a something that I got in therapy for post-traumatic stress disorder was the white box. The white box is where we put our anxiety. And what I learned was, because of the way my mind works and because of the way I think the universe works, I found the white box to be very handy in containing many things, in containing more than just my anxiety and my fear or my aggressions and my anger or all these things. It was a meditation point. And meditation, I find, in every culture, in every conceivable faith, there is an element that is meditation, and they will call it different things. But the truth of the matter is, it's about truly reaching inward and becoming very much in communion with everything around you, knowing your place, both physically and spiritually, in the universe. So meditation is what I do, and that's kind of what the white box is. So some cultures will light a candle and then focus on the flame of the candle, and it lets them wash away the rest of the world. Meditation focuses what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. And in your focus, ideally, things can't get you spiritually because you have walled away everything else. Now it's just you and the candlelight. It's just you and the white box. It's just you and the hole in the wall that you've focused upon. So these are tools that every culture and every faith practice, whether they call it prayer, whether they call it meditation, whether they call it, whatever. There is this idea that once you can place yourself through focus in the universe, the spiritual energies around you cannot interfere. Also, you can see clearer what is around you. You can witness things. There's a great exercise in Qigong, which is a type of energy manipulation like Tai Chi, where you can hold your hands like this. And if you focus into the area between your fingers here, you slowly get a sense of your aura, the world around you. And it's really just your eyes relaxing. It's really just you entering into a relaxed phase. But the longer you do it, the more surprising your personal energy is in communion with the energies around you, because we feel all the time that we're conflicting with the energy around us. So it really is about trying to come up with a way to go with the flow, to understand the energy around you. And so when other things are coming at you like this, and you're isolated because you're fighting the energy around you, you're susceptible. But if you're going with the energy, that means all of the universe is at your beck and call, protecting you.
And piggybacking off of that, I know we've mentioned in previous episodes that like my brother Kiwan, when he's severely afflicted by hags, basically, sleep paralysis. Yeah. And he calls to Jesus, and it works every time.
Which is
every time
fully reported.
Yeah.
In sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
In sleep paralysis studies, that oftentimes calling out to God and calling out to Jesus or whatever you believe in does alleviate it, because you are in a panic situation and you are reaching out to the source of your greatest comfort. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Maddie?
true.
Sage.
Yes, you could do that to cleanse things. It's not really a protection. I mean, you can do cleansing ceremonies that also bring in protection, but that's a whole different thing. But regardless, don't live your life in fear of evil spirits, because we do talk about it a lot, because it is a topic that interests you guys. It's a fun topic to talk about, but I feel like people tend to forget that it's not as common as people like to believe. People aren't out here getting possessed in your at your next door neighbor's house or whatever, very often. It's not going to be very common for you to encounter these types of spirits if you're not actively involved in the paranormal frequently, or if you're not, psychic or things of the nature of you're dabbling in the occult. Normal people are not going to really encounter very many evil spirits in their lifetime. So if that helps alleviate your anxiety even a little bit, I hope it does. For the protection side of things, again, it really boils down to your belief system.
According to Hocus Pocus 2, you could pour a salt circle around yourself.
Salt is famously used to ward away evil spirits.
It's very...
you lay it at your door frame.
Yeah. It's a very basic form of witchcraft, but
a haint blue broom. You can lay that in front of your doorway, and they won't come in. A blue bottle tree, blue bottle tree. You'll see those all over the world, basically. Those, and that's mainly from. Could be totally wrong about this, but mainly West African.
Yeah, it's a few different African countries.
Our understanding of it.
Our understanding of it is.
In the Bahamas, they did have them too, though.
Yeah, we were super excited to see all the blue bottle trees. Yes. I love them. I'm beautiful. When we have like a full blown, front yard, I'm definitely putting one up. Neighbors will hate it.
Yeah, it's okay.
They're actually kind of beautiful if you do
them
right.
Are beautiful, and we do it right. We definitely do it right. We actually have a cute little blue bottle tree over there, made by. I'll go get it real fast for our YouTube viewers. But y'all keep talking. I'll go get it so they can see it. But it's made by a Gola artist in Charleston.
Yes.
But yeah, so. It really matters that you pick something that brings you comfort and makes you feel protected, because, I could tell you, carry these crystals with you. And if you don't believe in crystals, then it's not going to do anything. Here you go.
Ooh.
Pretty, very pretty.
It is,
yes. Yep. All handmade, which is super cool. But yeah, I could hand you, a bag of crystals, and you'd be like, why are you handing me these rocks? And if in your mind all it is a rock, then it's not going to do much for you.
Right.
But if you feel comforted, sleeping with a Bible by your bed, like how Kiwan does, that's what he does. He has a cross and a Bible next to his bed. But or if you feel comforted wearing an evil eye, because a lot of people wear those to bring them a sense of comfort, then that's what works for you. Because again, it all matters about your conviction.
Right. And, people talk about talisman all the time, but a talisman isn't a specific thing. Your own talisman can be anything. For years and years, I carried a Zippo lighter. And it was my, good luck charm is where I focused a lot of my positive feelings, was to have this Zippo lighter with me. And that was strong enough for me to, when I was in the dark or when I was scared, if I could just click it or feel it in my hands, I knew that I was somehow bolstered by it. And I've known people to have their favorite knife, to have those favorite items that just bring them, Monopoly pieces, things like that.
It's funny you mentioned that, Chris, because this is going to sound super duper weird, but after I got married and I put on my wedding ring, I felt, and this could be totally psychological, but I've since then I've felt more, I guess, stronger.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know what
People
it is.
People forget that wedding rings are, in fact, ritualistic magic. It is a bind. You are no longer one person. You are now part of this great circle and this great thing.
Yeah.
And people forget the significance and the power of symbols. We've turned them into secondary things, but the truth of the matter is you wear the ring to show the universe that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And not only am I not alone, in many cases I am blessed by God in my union.
Yes.
These are things that people turn to commonplace, but the reason we have ritual at all is to cement whatever it is the ritual's about into a reality that influences us, that makes a difference. So yeah, when you wear your wedding ring, you are announcing to the universe that I am not alone.
I feel like, I feel like I will always have someone with my best interests in heart. I mean, and that obviously I have my, my brother, I trust 100%, my mother, my father, my family, I trust 100%, but I have a person now that literally, like you said, is like bound to me. We spend the majority of our lives together. 98% of our time is spent together. And that's even why we do this podcast, is so, I can just have more time with her.
We also did a hand fasting ceremony, and
we did
with just us
on the Loch Ness.
Yep, on the Loch Ness. We did a hand fasting ceremony, and it was just us and this woman who she practiced kind of like Celtic pagan rituals and stuff, and she did this for couples, and she did the whole shebang, made us a meal. It was just her. She did half of it in Gaelic. It was very interesting.
Fantastic.
It was cool.
But so we're even more bound to each other because we're also magically bound.
You are magic.
Yes.
All righty, here we go. Anne Marie Morales.
Hey.
Third question. Thank you so much. Ask more. Seriously, well, every single episode you could be.
She always has really good questions.
Yeah, they're
too,
well thought out. She sits there and drafts them. Very cool. What is it about doppelgangers that make them feel ominous or off? Is that another way of getting our attention? Or are they actual negative entities? I will say one of the things that Chris told me when I first met him, when we were just having, random discussion, was we were talking about how scary like clowns are, because we've had clown movie ideas. And he explained to me that the reason we find clowns so scary is that they look almost human.
Almost human.
And I love that. I love that.
Kind of motion.
And that, like I think I've mentioned this early in the podcast, but that's actually helped me with making horror films and all of that. Just him saying that influenced me to make things almost human. That's cool.
Well, anyway. And so the classic doppelganger, the concept of a doppelganger, is that we all have them. Every person who's born has a doppelganger spirit that looks just like us, acts just like us, has all our memories, and spends its entire existence waiting for the opportunity to kill us and replace us, to live out the rest of our lives. So the doppelganger, construct is that there is this entity that looks like you, that's growing with you, that has all the information it needs to be you. And what's fascinating is it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes a bad person suddenly is charitable and kind and decent. It's possible the doppelganger killed that person and took over their lives and became a better version of themselves. So the doppelganger notion is that you're being hunted by an alternate self.
I wish Hitler's doppelganger did that.
Well,
Hitler
maybe.
was an artist and a vegetarian, and one day he killed everyone. So, but what's interesting is I learned this from a book called Mirror Lore, and the question was, sometimes your reflection isn't your reflection, it's a doppelganger looking at you. And so if you've ever been in a mirror and you look in it and you're like, oh, that doesn't look like me, it might not be you. And one of the things that they said in the book was, try to judge the distance that the doppelganger is standing to the glass. Because the closer to the glass it is than you, the more likely it is to try to jump through the glass and get you, which is one of the foundations of the Bloody Mary story.
Yeah.
Bloody Mary in this book was suggestedly a doppelganger that jumped out, killed Mary, and threw her into the mirror realm, through the mirror into the mirror realm, and she's just floating out there in the darkness because there's no death on the other side of the mirror. So she's dying, but not dead, just bleeding for all eternity.
Wow.
But back to the doppelganger story. Ideally, doppelgangers are strange because they look just like us. That is a bizarre thing. When something looks just like us and we know that we're us, that's going to throw you off. That's going to be very odd. That is too uncanny to not be fearful.
I agree. Didn't they say that Avril Lavigne was taken over by a doppelganger? Did you guys ever hear that conspiracy theory?
That.
Yeah, because they were like, she looks the same, but she started acting different.
Right.
And there was like a few differences in her demeanor and like just slight differences in her appearance.
And I think that was one of the things that they use in doppelganger lore is the idea of if a person's personality changes drastically, you're like, oh, the doppelganger got him.
Yeah.
You know, if a kind person becomes miserly, if a sweet person becomes, cruel, it's because the doppelganger took over, not, normal mental health issues.
Yeah, exactly.
It was this belief that something got them and took over their lives, and now you're dealing with a totally different entity.
And that is a good point to bring up. We're not diminishing any kind of mental illness whatsoever. This is just solely talking about folklore.
These are folklore and legends and a compilation of them. This isn't the single thread. There is this belief, there is that belief, and once you smush them all together, the narrative becomes what I just said. But in fact, I think I told like 6 different doppelganger legends from around the world and just mushed them into one narrative.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. The point being that doppelgangers are just creepy because who wants to see someone that looks just like them but acts totally different? That's very frightening. I mean, look,
scary.
they made a whole Jordan Peele made a whole movie about it. Like, if it wasn't creepy, he wouldn't have made a movie about it, So, doppelgangers are definitely creepy. I don't want to ever meet mine, but JT is giving me the signal, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, y'all. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. If you ever have any kind of question, please feel free to utilize the Q&A button on TikTok, or if you have like a more pressing question or something a bit more personal and you're a patron, definitely reach out to us on Patreon. We are more than happy to answer your questions over there. But with that, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.